I'm about to test products made by the most popular YouTubers in the world, from creators with over 1 million subscribers to creators with well over 50 million. And I'm not holding back. This is about to get brutal. Last time I tested celebrity-made products, the average score was less than 5 out of 10. So, here's our new rating board. Get ready to lose some friends with me. Oh yeah, and best product gets a permanent place in our Hall of Fame. So let's start with the Clix smartphone keyboard from Mr. Mobile, this legend of a tech reviewer with 1.3 million subscribers. Oh, whoa. On first glance, this actually kind of looks like a prank gadget. You remember when the iPhone 5 was slightly taller than the iPhone 4 and we were all joking that this is what Apple was heading towards? Yeah, this is a lot. There's no chance that this is fitting into your average pocket. And if you've got women's jeans, it's over. I feel like every time you take this thing out, it's gonna look like one of those magician's handkerchiefs that just keeps going. Does wireless charging still work? Technically, yes, but it's quite finicky now. And MagSafe is even more of a stretch. Like, technically works, but I wouldn't call this MagSafe compatible just because of how loose the connection now is. So this had better be a very good typing experience. I'm not really sure about this, to be honest. It is very BlackBerry-esque, which makes a lot of sense, since to make this, they actually worked with one of the designers of the BlackBerry Bold. But, and this is just my personal preference, all this reminds me of is why I choose not to use a BlackBerry anymore. Like, I do think over time you could get close to the speed of a virtual keyboard typing on this, but you're still never gonna match it just because of the fact that there's a lot more resistance with a physical one. Oh, do you know the thing that I didn't factor in is that the phone is so heavy and you're holding it with your hands clamped down at the bottom here, so there is so much tipping force pulling it over. So, rating-wise, I wouldn't say this is garbage. I like that the keys have a built-in backlight. I like that you can still charge your phone while using the case. I like that not having to have a virtual keyboard can free up a lot of space on your screen. There will be users out there who love this thing so much that they'd be happy to put up with all of the compromises. Am I one of them? Probably not. Absolutely love the guy's videos, but the product, it's not really clicking with me. 4 out of 10. This is actually so rough. I have to be honest with these ratings, but people are not going to be happy. Now, if you don't know Hank Green, yes you do. He's one of the absolutely OG YouTubers, and he's got his fingers in a million different pies. You've almost certainly seen him on SciShow, his Vlogbrothers channel, or just explaining weird science concepts on TikTok. And his product is going to sound like a joke. It actually isn't. So this is for people who really struggle with 3D movies. You know, people who get headaches just by trying to watch them. So it converts them back into 2D with none of the blurriness that you would get from just taking your 3D glasses off. And I think it's pretty clever. So while 3D glasses receive a separate image to each eye, allowing your brain to combine the two images into one image that appears to have depth, these work by just receiving one of those images projected at you by a 3D movie and blocking out the other. Hank actually created them all the way back in 2010 when he wanted to go see Tron Legacy in 3D with his wife, who told him that she'd have to see it in 2D because 3D gives her headaches. So, unlike the vast majority of people who would have taken this as an opportunity to just go and see the film in 2D, Hank decided to instead create reverse 3D glasses so that they could both go to the 3D movie together. And you know what? On our 3D TV from 2014 that we spent a full day scouting for on Facebook Marketplace, it actually works. 3D movie, completely converted back, no blurriness. I've got mad respect for this. He identified a real problem, he built a very usable solution, he sells it for just $10. Straight to an 8 out of 10. Tough act to follow, but let's see if inventor Simone Giertz with 2.8 million subscribers can do it. She's probably best known for turning her Tesla into a pickup truck. And I assume she must have got so tired of people looking at her surname and pronouncing it Giertz that when it came to starting her own company, she decided to name it after the very literal way that you should pronounce that surname. And honestly, I think this goal calendar is the most interesting thing that she's released so far. Originally made for her own purposes, to help her to meditate every day for a year, but she just ended up loving it so much that she stuck it on Kickstarter. Ooh, that was one elite tier peel. I appreciate that. So in practice, it's a very simple product. You decide the thing that you're trying to do more of, and then as soon as you've done that thing for the day, you just tap on today's date and it lights up, giving you this bird's eye view of how well you're doing across the whole year. And could you imagine like how wildly fulfilling it would feel sitting there on New Year's Day, tapping it for the final time and seeing every single tile in the year lit up. But then again, at the same time, how infuriating it would be to like miss one random day in February and have this permanent black mark hanging over you. Ultimately, I think this is really useful. It's essentially exactly the same thing as the habit tracker that we've set up in our gym for motivation, except unlike fiddling around with some stickers to mark when you've been, this uses technology to make that process even more frictionless. It has adjustable levels of brightness. These are actually 24-karat gold-plated capacitive touchpads for some reason. And even if you have a power cut, it actually saves your progress. So it's like pretty overkill for what's ultimately simple functionality, but if all you want is like the best of a habit tracker that isn't one of the thousands of phone apps you see advertised in between Instagram Reels, then I'd say she's made it. And that's a very cool thing for a YouTuber to be able to do. It would be cooler if these were physical keys, designed to be extra satisfying with their own unique, rewarding sound effects, because I gotta say, I do find these touch plates a little bit fiddly to use, but still, 8 out of 10. This is product goals. Star Wars Theory is a channel that focuses on Star Wars. Here's the thing, if you spent any time on Star Wars YouTube, you'll also be familiar with the insanely expensive lightsaber replicas that are out there. So, Star Wars Theory decided that they wanted to create a less obnoxiously priced alternative, starting their own lightsaber company, Theory Sabers. So this is one of their most premium options. This is called the Fallen Knight. Wow. Tons of stuff in this box. This is very clearly not a rush job. So this is essentially a replica of Anakin Skywalker's saber, with its kyber crystal, you know, the power source of a lightsaber, exposed. Oh! Oh, wow. That's actually very impressive. Like, just listen for a second. Can you hear how it's reacting to not just the big movements I'm making, but even the subtle sways with like instantaneous responsiveness? There's actually 2 kyber crystals inside, red and blue, to symbolize the conflict within Anakin between the light side and the dark side. So many insanely niche touches here. Like, just as a crazy example, you see this cutout that exposes the crystals? Well, this cutout is exactly the same shape of the cut that Luke Skywalker makes in Vader's helmet during the fight on Dagobah. Plus, I think this is the coolest bit. So, we draw it, and you can completely change the characters that it represents. It will change the saber color, it will change the sound effects. Fit check. Oh, the sound effects encourage experimentation, I'll give it that. Ooh. Hey, it's very responsive to the impact, but the only thing I would say is only the middle of the blade lights up, even if you make contact at the end. Ooh. Oh, not again. I actually like this. This is a good product for like a very specific kind of person, but I've been doing a little bit of digging on the side, and it seems like Theory Sabers isn't really making their own sabers. They're buying them from a Chinese company called TXQ. They're adding their own packaging, their own sounds, but then they're selling them at like twice the price, which, I mean, they're pretty great sounds. And the sabers also come with tons of custom-made songs specifically baked into them. But does that not kind of take away from the whole point of it being a more affordable alternative to something? And what I particularly don't like is that it doesn't look like Theory is making it clear that they're doing this. Like, so many customer reviews on the site are from people who think Theory is actually manufacturing these, which makes it pretty clear that something is being lost in communication. So, Theory Sabers, 5 out of 10. In theory. But now we're getting to the 5 million plus subscriber greats, starting with Jay Laser Video, who's been building real-life sci-fi gadgets on the internet for over 12 years now. He did this one amazing video where he tried to create something as close as possible to Spider-Man's web shooters, and this is essentially his downsized, commercially available version of that shooter, without the risk of killing you. So it uses a pretty meaty spring in this section here to fire out your web. That is really cool. And that can either have a magnet or a suction cup attached to it, and then a rechargeable motor at the back to be able to bring that back to you. So let's say Spider-Man's feeling a little snackish. Ooh, connection. And then we pull it back. Whoa! It actually worked. Let's say my laptop is a little bit too far away for me to close myself. And now pull. Oh, nearly. Okay, not quite enough pulling force on the motor, but if I manually pull my wrist away, that actually kind of works. I've used a lot of stuff like this over the years that's pretty bad. So like, I was half expecting the sticky pad to just instantly bounce off the laptop, but like, success rate is pretty high. It's still a toy, don't get me wrong. It's a bit of fun, you might add it to a cosplay outfit to take it to the next level, but it's a very good toy. Well, I gotta say, YouTubers are doing a lot better than I was expecting them to. And that brings us to to a product from someone who's pretty massive in the tech space. So, Jerry Rig Everything, the teardown guy, loves using razor blade utility knives. He says they are the most versatile tool on the planet, but he also says that not all of them are created equal. Some of them are very cheap and flimsy, and so they have a lot of wiggle. Some of them are really big and plasticky, so he basically decided it was time for him to make his own. Just a knife in a box, no frills. I mean, it ain't fancy packaging, but at the same time, it's not a fancy price. It's less than $20 normally, and less than $10 when he drops a sale. So the knife itself, it takes industry standard razor blades, and it comes with some, which I do appreciate, because I just find it so infuriating when products don't ship with the basic assumed things that you need to use them, like batteries. Anyways, that's pretty good. Let's try that again. Good old paper test. Wow. So yeah, one thing you have to give this thing is it's sharp. We'll use this for the rest of our unboxings just so you can see how light work it makes of them. And there's actually a lot to like here. It's got a nice small footprint. I like the fact that it's got a spring here, which keeps the knife fully closed when folded. So the blade is never sitting in this position, which could become a threat to life. I like the fact that even though there is plastic on the outsides, it doesn't feel plasticky. And also, when you open the thing, it locks up like a freaking gun safe. That's not moving. But then at the same time, this isn't like some of the products we've seen earlier in this video. This isn't some big new innovation. Because the blades are standardized, so the blade here is exactly the same as the blade you'd use on this even cheaper knife, the actual product here is really just the handle. And it's pretty good. The only thing I particularly don't like about it is that to close up the knife, you have to put a lot of pressure on this section down here. And the only way that I can comfortably do that is to have my other fingers directly in the firing line of the blade, which just freaks me out. It makes me feel like I've got to do this whole maneuver in slow motion just so I protect these moneymakers. So I'm going to put this right in between 6 and 7, so 6.5. Now, while that tech YouTuber's product is very simple, very uncontroversial, the Anarch smartwatch is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So, Tech Burner is a very popular Indian tech YouTuber, and one of the very few who's not just released accessories of his own, but his own actual smart device. Feels good to actually have a sharp knife now. But this smartwatch, while initially receiving an incredibly strong reception, with Tech Burner's announcement video hitting basically 10 million views with over 500,000 likes for his immense ambition, then started to get roasted pretty bad once people actually got their hands on the thing. So what do I think? Well, I actually think the design is great. I think it's really impressive that as a piece of hardware, he's actually managed to make something that feels distinctive without looking tacky. The strap feels premium, the casing feels premium. I don't think that's a small feat. And while the software doesn't feel as premium, like as a very quick demo, Apple Watch, and now Anarch Watch. You can tell the difference, right? Plus, it's looking very likely that this operating system is not designed from scratch by Tech Burner. It's a skinned version of some existing Chinese software. You also do have to bear in mind two things. A, that unlike an Apple Watch, this isn't $400. This is like the equivalent of 80. And B, that it's insanely hard to do this. It's insanely hard for a YouTuber, someone whose specialty is content creation and who most likely will have a very small team to actually design and manufacture a tech product that's trying to compete with companies 100 times the size who've been in the game for a decade plus. So, what I think the vast majority of this rests on is, does this actually track reliably? Well, I have actually been wearing this side by side with my Apple Watch for the last few days, and in terms of activity, honestly, it gives me nonsense numbers. Like if my elliptical says that my heart rate is 100, the Apple Watch will pretty much always be no more than 1 or 2 off that. The Anarch is very regularly off by 10 to 15. That's not within normal margin of error. That's just wrong. And then in terms of sleep, I would say the Apple Watch is not perfect, but at the same time, it's 95% there. Like I have cross-checked this against a bunch of other sleep measuring devices like smart beds and sensors that go underneath your mattresses. And the Anarch produced such different results to the Apple Watch that honestly, it just feels like it's guessing. Like I know for a fact this day that I woke up at 8 a.m. This is telling me that I was still asleep at 8:48 somehow. And just generally, there's quite a few things here that could easily be ironed out with the Gen 2 product, but that persistently remind you that this isn't one. Like the metal here is constantly clanging against things. The screen can just blast out light at night when you move your wrist too much. So, while I really, really do respect the attempt, I'm going to have to say, not this time. Watch this space. Now, if you thought the J-Laser Video web shooter was an impressive demo of someone creating fictional gadgets in real life, then I think the Hacksmith Industries lightsaber, based on the consistently improving full-size version that the guy's been working on in his videos for years now, has a pretty good chance of topping even that. So the packaging itself is designed to be used as a display stand. Oh, check this out. I helped develop the world's first lightsaber. That is great fan service. And then inside it all, here we go. Wow, it's like proper full metal construction. So, while these are both YouTuber-made lightsabers, they go about it in completely opposite ways. Theory have gone for the full-size $600 proper replica display model type route. Hacksmith have gone for miniaturized $99 blowtorch. All right. Whoa. Oh my God. Holy cow. I mean, on the full spectrum of how good or bad I thought this could have been, this is the higher end. It definitely feels like quite a bit more than just a lighter in a fancy body. Oh yeah, and do you want to know the coolest bit? You can also put these color-changing inserts into your saber to change the color of the flame, which work by adding certain salt crystals into the burn. So if I stick that onto there, and then... when it catches, can you see that? It's bright green. That is actually so cool, especially because of how similar that is to how a lightsaber's kyber crystal is meant to determine the color of the blade. Let's see what kind of power we're working with. Whoa! Woo! The speed that thing collapsed. It's actually a pretty serious piece of equipment. So what would I actually use this for in my day-to-day life? Honestly, probably like lighting candles, and that's about it. Would I keep buying these color change inserts? Probably not. They're like $14 for a pack of 12 and they last about 2 minutes. But is this a really unique product that's very cool, delivers on exactly what it sets out to without any major real compromises? Hell yeah. I am going to award it our first 9 out of 10. With almost 16 million subscribers now, it's Airac time. And I just want to say, seeing this, either this guy is like a master of marketing, or he has very literally reinvented cuisine. Because his product, Pizzafy, a sauce that, in his words, turns anything into pizza, is about as tantalizing of a prospect as it gets. So I actually got sent this one from Airac himself. I told him we were making this video and he basically just replied, say no more. And then this box showed up. So this is his Pizzafy sauce, and then I guess stuff to use it with. Wait, dried pineapple chunks. Oh, I suppose because pineapple pizza. Pringles, what's this? Oh, it's just a box of insects. Oh my God, So here's what I think is the use case for this. You're really craving a pizza, but at the same time, you can't be bothered to actually go to the kitchen and hand make one yourself for 20 minutes. So how close does it get? So we're going to assume that real pizza is a 10. So now, Pizzafy on toast. This feels like such a stretch. I actually really like it. It's very rich, indulgent sauce that does a very good job converting this into tasting like pizza without being so much that you can't eat it in large quantities, like a lot of sauces. I'd say that's like 85% on the way to being pizza. Right, let's try a pineapple chunk. That's the weirdest combination of foods I've ever eaten. The link to pizza is starting to become a little tenuous. I'd say that's 50% as good as pizza. And finally, let's try it on something that's distinctly not tasty. So, Pizzafy on cauliflower. Yeah, I feel like at that point, it starts to just taste like salty seasoning. So, if I'm being really honest, do I think this is very clever and also slightly misleading marketing? Yeah, because if you boil it down, really, this is basically marinara sauce, but with a slight cheesy taste that I'm assuming is coming from the inactive yeast inside. Then I kind of feel like, you know when you click on a really clickbait YouTube thumbnail, but then the video itself ends up being so good that you're almost grateful for that thumbnail for getting you to click. Because is this still good marinara sauce? I would say yes. The only real thing is the price. It's $25 for 2 bottles, so it's not quite an 8. I will give you a saucy 7. I feel like I don't even need to introduce Linus Tech Tips, one of the very original tech YouTubers and an inspiration to many of the ones who followed. And Linus has released a ton of products in his time. But if you were to ask what is the single most impactful one, I think most people would tell you the screwdriver. LTT set out to basically make the best screwdriver humanly possible. It took them 3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to this. Now, whether or not it was worth it, we'll get to, but what I do like straight off the bat is I think this is how a YouTuber should make a product. Linus effectively decided that he loved this screwdriver from a company called MegaPro because of its ability to store the bits inside of the handle. And so instead of pinching the idea or trying to copy it, he approached the company to try and work with them on it. And then instead of just taking the good product they'd already made and just slapping his label on it, he tweaked basically everything about it in ways that he felt would make it even better. So I kind of feel like it utilizes his expertise as a reviewer and gets around the fact that he doesn't have a background in manufacturing. So anyway, the handle is very meaty and also very grippy. It feels like even if you do get a little sweaty screwing things, you're still gonna be able to keep going. These bits, they also fit really securely in on the inside. Like, they are not going anywhere. And then there's a pretty strong magnet at the tip to hold those bits in place, which has the other benefit of also being able to catch screws as you're taking them out. Not to mention the naturally occurring haptics here are, yeah, I mean, that's just pristine. I think this is like elite tier YouTuber product. And not necessarily because they've worked harder than others, it's because I think they've worked smarter. Like, working with a company who makes screwdrivers day in, day out means that you no longer have to worry about all the little niggles that can crop up making your own product. So all Linus's team needed to do here is the fine tuning and making it even better. 9.5 out of 10. Right, Joyride Candy is probably the least techie thing in this entire video, but I just think it's so naturally interesting because the face of the brand is now Ryan Trahan, the YouTuber fast approaching 20 million subs. Because here's the thing, I love Ryan Trahan. We even did a video together. It was very fun, but I also have to admit it, I'm very health conscious. And so my spidey senses immediately perk up whenever someone says that something is healthy when it doesn't look or taste it. And this is pretty clearly candy that's being marketed as being healthy. They say no fake colors, they say no junk ingredients. And literally on the bag, it says 4 grams of sugar, no junk. Okay, I'm gonna go watermelon wedges. This is what I'd pick if I saw them all on a store shelf. Okay, first impression, it's a little sticky. Feels wet. I wouldn't exactly call it big flavor, like it says on the packet here. It's actually pretty small flavor. I wouldn't say it's incredibly sweet. I wouldn't say it has that kind of sharp tanginess of like a Haribo, but that's not necessarily a complaint. Like, I generally prefer more neutral flavors. So this is exactly the kind of thing I would naturally gravitate towards anyway. So the flavor's pretty good. Then the question becomes, how have they made that flavor pretty good? Because if it is just 4 grams of sugar and then a bucket load of aspartame sweetener, then what's the point? Right, so the 2 key sources of sweetness in this, apart from sugar, are allulose and stevia, which, I mean, as far as the current medical understanding of these two is concerned, they are both naturally occurring low and 0 calorie sweeteners that don't spike your blood glucose. I actually went on a really strict diet a couple of years ago where the only source of sweetness I could have was stevia, and I was sick of it because the aftertaste is horrible, which is probably why they've combined it with allulose and sugar. Okay, so my review is, I really like the products. I just think they need one tweak. I think instead of writing no junk on the front, because if we're being really honest, this is still an ultra-processed candy packed full of sweeteners, and no junk definitely implies it's healthy. It really should change to less junk. That would make it clear that it's healthier than a lot of its competitors, because I think it's pretty fair to say that it is, but also that it's not healthy compared to, say, a piece of fruit. And then you factor in cost. This is like, I actually haven't seen a candy more expensive than this. It's like $5 a bag. So in totality, Joyride gets a 6.5 out of 10. Do I have to? Oh, this is gonna be so bad. Too much piece of pie. They're great products on their own, to put them together. Now, I probably don't need to tell you that Marques Brownlee, MKBHD, launched a wallpaper app at the end of 2024 because the backlash from it ended up spiraling into something far bigger than even the original announcement. People questioned the price, a $50 per year subscription for wallpapers. People questioned the privacy of their data, with the app asking for a lot more permissions than you'd expect for a JPEG downloader. And then just the general question of who even asked for a wallpaper app in 2024? So now that all that's died down, now that the app's had some updates, what I want to do is to download it and see if it's actually good. So booting it up for the very first time, there are still permissions, but this now does look like the base minimum that you would need for an app that has adverts and that needs to be able to save stuff onto your device. So then it asks you to pick 5 artists that you like. So far, I mean, pretty good experience. Wallpaper apps generally have, ironically, some of the worst user interfaces. This is pretty nicely organized and animated. And at this point, you are basically just in a feed. Every now and again, you'll see a collection that you have to pay for. And I have to say, some of them are very expensive. Like this one is 4 fairly similar looking digital images for $7.99. But at the very least, those collections are optional. And at least the money is being split with the artists. So let's say that I like the look of this wallpaper that's not part of a collection. So I click it, get wallpaper, and then, So it's either download it in 1080p, which, let's be honest, on any high-end modern smartphone is not a very good option because most of them have displays that are higher resolution than that, and many of them will also end up stretching that wallpaper in the process of applying it. And so then if I want the high res, I have two options. Either subscribe to the app, which to be fair does now cost less than it used to. It's either $2 a month to get all the standard wallpapers, which feels reasonable-ish, or it's $12 a month or $50 per year to also include the collections too. $50 a year feels understandable. 12 a month feels like too much. Or the final option to get your full res wallpaper is you click here. Wow, that's over 30 seconds of full screen ad. Okay, so clearly this isn't perfect. This isn't some miracle app that instantly gives you all the best wallpapers for free, but I do think the interface is slick. I think the average wallpaper quality is pretty high. And the most important thing is it doesn't feel like I'm getting hustled. You know, there's so many free apps which will display one of these full screen ads every time you click the back button, whereas it doesn't feel like they're trying to hide what this is. So I would give Panels a solid 6. He's clearly listened to feedback and he's tried to improve it. If you're of a certain age, you've definitely seen a Vsauce video. And if not, you've probably at least seen people do impressions of, "Hey Vsauce, Michael here." So in the same vein as the mind-bogglingly niche science think piece videos that they've always made, the Vsauce Curiosity Box is an educational science toy subscription with video lessons and instructions from Michael himself on how to use the things. So straight away, first impression is, I can see why this is fun. There's a whole bunch of quite varied looking stuff inside of it, all with its own unique presentation. And at the very bottom, a t-shirt too. So the obvious risk with stuff like this is it actually fun for more than like an hour? And does it provide any other value after that? Okay, so MGS-1, which is Mars Global Simulant. So simulated Mars soil used by NASA to test equipment that would be deployed on Mars. So this is what Mars feels like. It's all right. Don't know why Musk is in such a rush to get there. What do I do with it now? Okay, so 67 shadow alphabet shapes. So you've got to use these to create kind of like the negative space around each letter without creating the letter itself. It's interesting. It's just not necessarily particularly different from picking up a jigsaw puzzle. So then we've got Picture Pie, which is essentially a bunch of stencil discs that allow you to draw a picture by consistently drawing tiny separate lines and then rotating the disc. It'll feel like nonsense while you're doing it, only for you to then take the disc off at the end to reveal a pretty coherent looking result. Oh, and of course, even the t-shirt is not normal. This is an amphichiral knot, depicting the only known 15 crossing knot where both the knot and its mirror image are the same. Should have been a V-neck. There's even like a book here called Why Not? Get it, like knot, because it teaches you about 60 different knots, how to make them, and includes the rope you need to do so. All of this stuff is like incredibly complex and super nerdy, but I can see why people are into it. I like what this stands for. I like the fact that this stuff very literally encourages curiosity. It makes you think a little outside the box, and that's like food for your brain. But then at the same time, it is like $60 a box, and largely speaking, most of this stuff isn't teaching you skills that are particularly relevant or translatable. It's very much like, here's some wacky things to do that are a bit different to the usual Lego. So I like it. I just don't love it. I think some of this stuff could quite easily end up as clutter. 7 out of 10. Unbox Therapy. Unboxer, Therapier, and Bender of the iPhone 6 back in the day. This guy in 2019, he claimed that he's never found a phone case that he actually likes. They're all too bulky or too flimsy, they collect dust and dirt, and he struggled to find good ones for the more niche devices. So he decided to create his own case company that, quote, wouldn't ruin your smartphone. And one of the key ways that they apparently do that is by being made of premium Kevlar aramid fibers that allow them to be very strong while being impossibly thin. So right off the bat, these guys were not kidding with the thinness. The thing feels like a sheet of paper. And when you put it on, my phone actually does feel completely different to how it feels with a thick case. I love this matte texture. You can actually feel the weave. And it is also, to their credit, incredibly easy to slip on and off. That's one of the key pain points they said they wanted to fix, and I can confirm that they have. So is this goated? Well, not immediately, because for starters, I mean, how often do you need to take your case off? I don't think I've done it in about 3 months. I don't think this later case looks the best. It's very gappy around the sides, and it makes the cameras resemble a fidget spinner. Plus, because it's so thin, it doesn't have any magnets in either, so your MagSafe is a lot weaker than it is on something like this. Okay, scratch test time. Let's try something very soft, like a level 4. Oh no. Okay, well, might as well finish my sentence now. So not very scratch resistant at all. Okay, time to drop test. And I'm not doing this to go higher and higher and see which one of these breaks first, because looking at the size of this case, the answer is pretty obvious. It's more a question of, if you drop a phone with this case from a normal height that most people might, will it survive? So, 3, 2, 1. Not great noises. So my main phone with my main case are completely fine, with some very, very light marking where the case has hit the floor. The later case has importantly completely protected the phone, but the case itself has suffered a little bit more casualty. So it does serve the base function of protecting your phone in a form factor that's not too bulky and that has this really nice, comfortable matte texture. But then some part of me is also looking at this thinking, what does this do at $60, by the way, which is just insane for what this feels like, that a $10 or $15 case doesn't do? Not much, I would say. So later case gets a 5 out of 10. Could have been a greater case. At well over 60 million subscribers now, it's Mark Rober, the ex-NASA engineer who now spends his time making insanely large-scale science engineering concepts. And he's also created Crunch Labs, which is yet another subscription box, but this time it's more focused on giving you one buildable project that teaches you STEM concepts. Oh yeah, so here is where I spent 45 minutes trying to peel off the address label with limited success. And then inside, please don't be a glitter bomb, please don't be a glitter bomb. Whew. Okay, so unlike the Vsauce Curiosity Box, this box is just one thing, and everything inside is focused on making that one thing. So the box we got is for the disk launcher, which Joseph on our team happily put together. He said it was fun, and it only took 13 minutes total, which is not a terrible thing. There's two types of boxes you can get. The build box, which is more for kids and is the one we have here, and then the hack pack, which is made for teens and adults and would take closer to an hour. So turn it on here, and then wow. I gotta say, the accuracy is phenomenal. They've managed to retain this really authentic homemade feel to these projects, but at the same time while having the kind of performance that you'd expect from something pre-made. It's still not gonna occupy you for days on end, but this has felt like one of those experiences in which every single part of the process has been very well thought through. Everything from the website design, I thought was so sick, to the instructions where it really does fully explain the reason why it works the way it works, to the fact that for every box, Mark Rober has made a separate, dedicated video just to give even more insight. Plus, unlike the Vsauce box, this is $25, which, yeah, I mean, you get less stuff, but I'd rather have just one thing I love as opposed to 6 things I kinda like. So, based on this box and on my experience, I think this is deserving of a 9 out of 10, which means, congratulations, Linus. Highest rated product from the entire video. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. But there's one thing that gets promoted by YouTubers more than anything we've seen so far. VPNs, like ExpressVPN, but also our sponsor Surfshark. So I just wanted to very clearly show you why Surfshark is just the straight up better product. So firstly, pop onto their websites. ExpressVPN starts at $5 a month. Surfshark starts at $2 a month, with 4 extra months for free if you use the code BOSS at checkout. But what about the speeds? Well, this phone is using Surfshark, this phone is using ExpressVPN, and both are connected to Morocco. Okay, well, Surfshark is coming out significantly faster, but I mean, even if it was the same, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the only thing I can see that ExpressVPN has is 105 servers compared to Surfshark's 100, but if your actual speed is slower, then why does that even matter? All topped off with the fact that Surfshark has unlimited users for that one subscription price compared to 8 with Express, and just antivirus, data breach alerts, and even an alternate ID feature for you to use. So head to surfshark.com/boss to check it out for yourself.